Hello, how are you? Is it on? Sometimes it has problems. How's that? Wow, it all happens right there, doesn't it? Hello, I'm your speaker this evening. My name is Philip Blue Owl Hooser. I should say I am an actor, playwright, director, gadabout. I host a radio show on KKFI, which is what makes me a gadabout, I guess. And for 20-some years, I have been doing this, speaking about Shakespeare in the park, for Shakespeare in the park. I also want to say, because there's no one else to introduce me, I have to brag on myself a little bit. In the last month, I have crossed 2 items off my bucket list. One of them being there was a storytelling podcast called Risk. Actually Risk exclamation point. And it's because if you're familiar with This American Life, it's kind of like that, only it's stories you thought you'd never dare to share. And they had a live event in Lawrence on the 19th of May, and I was the approximately 20 people who applied to be part of it. I was one of 4 selected for that honor, and I've been listening to that podcast for more than 6 years, so it was definitely a dream come true. And I just finished 2 weeks of playing the role of Arnold in the play Torch Song Trilogy, which runs about 3.5 hours. And we had 8 performances, so that's a full 24 hours of my life I've devoted to playing that role, and it was a really rewarding and wonderful experience for me. So, hello! Enough talk about me, let's talk about you. What do you think of me? Thank you. So we're here to talk about Much Ado About Nothing, and there's a lot that we can learn about this show from the title alone. If, for instance, that it's a comedy, it doesn't have tragedy in the title, for one thing. That's a good clue. It also fits in with the little whimsical light titles like As You Like It and Measure for Measure and All's Well That Ends Well. It contains, as do Shakespearean comedies, multiple storylines, some fun and very funny dialogue, a romantic storyline that has some impediment to the completion and fulfillment of that romance, and of course a happy ending. I say a happy ending. They get married. So just looking at the words, we know that it reflects a lot of the action. There's certainly a lot going on, but is it really about nothing? And what is this nothing that it might be about? Well, this play, like Porgy and Bess, has plenty of nothing, and nothing's plenty for me, but it's a special meaning of the word nothing. There are certainly misunderstandings that go on throughout the play, of course, but on another level, Elizabethans would have pronounced the word noting, and so it becomes a pun on music, because notes, and they would have recognized that certainly within the course of the play there's a lot of discussion about music and dancing, and it's sort of the dialogue of the play becomes sort of a metaphor for the courtship dance. This play has also been likened to rustic folk dances, where men and women start off dancing together and then they go apart into their separate genders and then come back together. That also happens through the course of the play. But it also works in the sense of noting as noticing, or eavesdropping, or spying. But note this, while many a truth may be dropped in eaves, not all of it is accurate, the way that characters are given to understand it. In fact, 4 times in this play, this noting or spying takes place, and only once is the truth properly understood in the course of it. The first 2 times, in fact, happen between the characters of Beatrice and Benedict. And they each overhear that the other one loves them, which is not exactly true. And we'll get to that and the other 2 in due course. There's another meaning to the word noting, and that is, it's an Elizabethan slang term. It's a little delicate to talk about in the open air as to what exactly it's a slang term for, but the Elizabethans use the word something as a slang word that would mean something that is visible on a man's body that is not visible, or it's nothing, on a woman's body. An Adam's apple, of course, right? No? Perhaps. All of these multiple meanings of the word nothing or noting indicate that language is also very important in this play. The characters are in love with words, sometimes excessively so, because they express themselves in the most excessive terms. For instance, Beatrice and Benedict each declare that they will never fall in love and never marry. And Claudio says that Hero is the sweetest girl that he has ever seen. The most excessive language, of course, can be also seen in the figure of the policeman, Dogberry, who only catches bad guys by accident, but he never catches the right word when he means to. So he certainly creates a mess in a Messina, which is better as a visual pun than saying it out loud. Mess in maybe it's not better as a visual pun. Leonato is the governor of Messina, and he has a daughter of marriageable age who is named Hero. And for a few days, Prince Don Pedro and his soldiers are on leave after defeating Don Pedro's half-brother Don John, who, of course, they've also brought along for the fun to Messina, because what else are you going to do with your half-brother you've just defeated? Hey, let's go have a good time in Messina. What do you say? And after a battle, of course, the soldiers are feeling a little randy, and so they are there to fall in love. And it doesn't seem to require bribing anyone with Hershey bars and nylons, which is something that amuses me, but I know what it means because I'm old. You youngsters, you don't know anything about that. And Claudio, one of the lead soldiers, while waging war, has become convinced that he is in love with this girl named Hero. Claudio is our hero. Hero is our heroine. I hope that makes sense. Poor Claudio. He's a few cannoli short of a festival. He just simply isn't very bright. We'll see that he's easily duped and that he's quick to rush to judgment. And this girl, Hero, the daughter of the governor, Leonato, is the constant topic of conversation in this play. People talk about her throughout. Yet, of the four main characters of our two romantic couples, she speaks the least of all of them by a great deal. She's on stage in the first scene, which lasts about 130 lines. She has one of them. The name Hero would mean something more to people who are in touch with Greek mythology, because there was this young woman named Hero who was the beloved of Leander, and Leander would swim across this river in order to spend the nights with her, and then wake up and swim back to his own so that they wouldn't be discovered at all. Unfortunately, one night Leander drowned in the course of this. So certainly the Elizabethans, more in touch with Greek mythology than we often are, would know that the name Hero was setting up this character for some tragedy, and tragedy does befall her in the course of it. But a heroine named Hero is the least of the problems with this play. When we talk about story, when writers talk about story or in breaking down stories to understand them, we'll often talk about an A story and a B story. The A story is our main emotional content. And these terms are still used, especially in sitcoms today. There's the A story and the B story, two separate stories going on, but that have an impact on each other very often. The A story is our dramatic core. It's the thing we're most interested in. And that's Claudio and Hero in this. The B story is often a parallel story. It's usually wrapped up before the end of the A story, which is how you can tell it's the B story, for one thing. It often provides a commentary on the A story. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't, but here's the problem as far as this play goes. The B story is so much more fun than the A story. It is, in fact, literally a B story because it features Benedict and Beatrice in the course of it. They're clever, they're agile with words, they like to talk a lot, they have a witty banter that they set up. If you've ever seen a Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn film, it's that kind of relationship. They just hate each other. Oh, they have a certain past, or rather an uncertain past, because we don't actually find out much about what it is, and they know the problem that they have with each other as well. As Benedict says of Beatrice, and to her, "It is certain I am loved of all ladies, only you excepted. And I would I could find it in my heart that I had not a hard heart, for truly I love none." To which she replies, "I'd rather hear a dog bark at a crow than a man swear he loves me." They hate each other. What do we know is going to happen to them by the end of this play, right? It's something that we're certainly used to from rom-coms and Spencer and Tracy and Katharine Hepburn films. So, Hero is the modest, quiet, conforming girl. Her cousin Beatrice, however, is the exact opposite. She has carved out a reputation for herself for independence and self-sufficiency. Benedict is much the same as her. In fact, they both suck the oxygen out of the room whenever they're on stage because they're so clever, so funny. In fact, they use up so much of the air that I call them the Airbnb. Always use the big groaning pun as your place where you can take a drink. So, they're so much more interesting than the lead characters, the A-story characters, that Hero even seems more like a sidekick to Beatrice. And this is despite the fact that the story couldn't exist without her. Beatrice and Benedict are so popular as a couple that throughout the 18th and 19th century, they would just be sort of plucked out of this play and dropped into other plays that people wanted to be more entertaining. You know, Hamlet, walks around in black, mopes all the time. Throw in Beatrice and Benedict, it'll be more fun that way. And people did this. So Claudio, convinced he's in love with Hero, proposes to her, kind of. In fact, they actually don't talk to each other for a long time in this play. Watch, for the first time, they actually have on-stage dialogue. It may surprise you how late in the action it is. But so when he proposes, he actually presses his commander, Don Pedro, into service to do the actual proposing. And he does so in disguise, at a mask, at a dance. And that's where the impediment character comes from. The one who stands in the way of everyone's happiness, and that is Don John, Pedro's defeated brother, who is a self-proclaimed villain. And if he can't attack Don Pedro directly, then he's willing to do so in the person of Claudio and destroy Claudio's happiness as much as he possibly can. And for the longest time in this play, we also don't know why. Why is he so evil? Why is he doing this? Is it just because he's defeated? The Elizabethans would have understood him a little bit differently than we do. And that is because he was born on the wrong side of the blanket, as they say. He is the bastard child, the half-brother. Elizabethans thought that the very fact of this conception meant that someone was evil, or certainly it was their accepted stage convention. Oh, bastard brother, he's bad. Then he is also responsible for the third example of noting in the sense of spying or eavesdropping that takes place, because he sets up Claudio to see a woman who looks like Hero talking to another man. The implication is there's more than just talk going on between the two of them, if you know what I mean. And this is just before Claudio and Hero are to marry. And so what should have been Hero's happiest day is ruined when Claudio comes in and denounces Hero, saying of her, "Give not this rotten orange to a friend. She's but the sign and semblance of her honor. Oh, what authority and show of truth can cunning sin cover itself with." And he storms out. And Benedict, Claudio's best friend, turns against him and says that he will kill him. And Beatrice says that she will eat Claudio's heart in the marketplace. It's a comedy! Right? It's also kind of like Shakespeare's greatest hits, doing a medley of Shakespeare's greatest hits. Claudio becomes so jealous at say, the drop of a handkerchief, that he attacks this woman that he's supposed to be in love with, much like Othello does. The evil bastard brother is a character that appears in a couple of plays, most notably in King Lear. Pardon me, the shrewish independent woman reminds us of Kate in Taming of the Shrew, and that's what Beatrice is like. And all of this action leads to a moment where our heroine, Hero, fakes her death with the help of a monk. Where have I, Romeo and Julieted that before? And so it is arranged that Claudio, having not married Hero, is set up by Leonardo with a woman that he will marry, he agrees, sight unseen. And in fact, unseen throughout their wedding even. Because it is only once he is married to this girl that she reveals that she is Hero, who is suddenly back from the dead, reborn, and is willing to forgive Claudio everything. This is comedy? Are we really supposed to buy this? Look, Hero's honor is only restored by the fourth example of noting or noticing in this play. That's when Dogberry overhears one of Don John's henchmen say that he was responsible for tricking Hero, for setting him up for this. Situations in comedy, particularly in Shakespearean comedy, are usually something that's about to fly apart at the seams at any moment. And throughout this play, impediments arise and are just quickly forgotten by the characters. It's something that we kind of accept in comedy, and I think that we are even more willing to accept it if the name Shakespeare is on the comedy, because we think, oh, well, there's got to be something to it then. But still, there are things in this play that are a little troubling. The soldiers, of course, have been trained to do as they are told. Go off and fight the war. Go marry the niece, sight unseen. And women in the society are also do as they are told. Stay pure until marriage, and then marry the soldier. Marry well. The women's societal roles in this play are either the innocent or the spoiled fruit. Beatrice, however, is the exception. She is most like the men in the play. She's loud. She is brash. She interrupts others. Not something Hero would ever think of doing. And in the end, she agrees to peace with Benedick and to marry him. Hero and Claudio are the romantic ideal of passionate love. But gosh, when you watch it, it's like, why do they love each other? They're like a slice of American cheese, you know, bland, untouched by human hands, wrapped for individual consumption. Beatrice and Benedick have passion only in their fighting. Benedick goes to marriage with the ringing endorsement of why anyone should get married, saying, "The world must be peopled." So much of this plot revolves around Hero, but the story is really about men and their public persona, how they relate to each other and their reputations. You know, they must have an unsullied reputation, and so must their wives. They move to protect other men, while the women have a much richer private life. That's where all of their relations are, not in public, but in private, and that's where we actually get to see them relate to each other and relate well. In fact, in war, Claudio, it is said, has done in the figure of a lamb the feats of a lion. His identity, and Benedick's too, is in being a man's man. And Don John, of all people, the bastard brother, is believed above what any of the women have to say, just because he has something. In the Elizabethan slang sense, he has a Y chromosome. He's a man. Therefore, he can be believed. And if you think that our society has advanced a lot beyond this, then what does this phrase mean to you? Bros before hoes. It's not much different today. Shakespearean comedies are also largely about conforming by the end, conforming to societal expectations. Hero has conformed all along, but it hasn't provided her any protection. Beatrice hasn't, but she appears to at the end. And even at that point, Benedick says that he will stop her mouth. He means with a kiss, but is that all he means? Perhaps there is another layer to this title. Perhaps it can be a little ironic that love is not nothing at all, but that it shouldn't be treated as casually as the characters seem to in this play. So I think you have a choice. You can be troubled by the gender politics on display in the course of the action, or you can find a little peace with it because of the B story with its play and its fun language, and regard the A story as more of a fairy tale, which it's in the tradition of the original versions of fairy tales. And if you haven't read the original version of Cinderella, I can tell you now, women cut off their feet and parts of them in order to fit into the shoe so that they can marry the prince. That's the violence in the original fairy tales, just like there's violence in the fairy tale of the A story. And you can continue with that, treating the A story as a fairy tale and enjoy the B story and fall under the spell of the voodoo that Much Ado do so well. And I thank you for your time here. We have a few minutes if you have any questions about the play or the festival or about me. I know lots of stuff about me. Or for applause. There's also time for applause. Yes. I am not in any plays remaining this summer. I do have one that's still under wraps coming up this winter, though. So it hasn't been officially announced, so I can't officially announce what it is, but in Kansas City. But close to the state line, I'll tell you that much. 1 block away from the state line on 39th Street. Yes?
But you were just in a play, so why don't you talk about that? What a great job you did in the play.
Oh, gosh. Well, I don't know that I necessarily did a great job. I certainly had a fun job, and it was a wonderful experience. Playing in Torchsong Trilogy, which is something I mentioned at the top of this, was, as I said, 3.5 hours. I was on stage almost constantly. When I was not on stage, I was changing costume and rushing back on stage. And it was the role that Harvey Fierstein wrote for himself, played on Broadway, and won a Tony Award both for writing the play and for playing the role. And I will say that my character cried so much during the third act, I thought I was in danger of dehydration. But it was tears of anger, tears of joy, tears of love. If I talked about it, they would probably come again, just thinking about it, because it was really a great experience. But did you see it? No, one of you did, I know. 2 of you. You did? Okay. Oh, good. There's 3. See? You saw it? Wonderful. Even better. How was I? Oh, see, she says I was fabulous. We'll go with that. But it was a fun experience. Great cast to work with. Gosh. Still love them in my heart. Anything about this play? No? Oh, yes.
What is a line you pick up that is one of your favorites that is in this play?
And that is in this play. I like I've already used it. It's Beatrice's about I'd rather hear a dog bark at a crow, because it just sums up so much of her character. I actually managed to see a really, really wonderful production of this in DC at the Shakespeare library, where they had set the action of the play in a family Italian restaurant in the lower village, in the East Village. It was sort of in the 1950s, so Don Pedro and Don John became Dons. They were Godfather, mafia characters, and corrupt policemen. And the young woman who played Beatrice was just hilarious and so much fun to watch. She actually won Best Actress in their citywide awards that year. She was breathtaking in the role. And they had a jukebox that was playing all, like Sinatra and Dean Martin and all the great 50s Italian hits. It was so beautifully, beautifully done.
Where's the tragedy?
Where's the tragedy in this?
There must be.
Well, I think that what Hero undergoes, being denounced, faking her death, that's a tragic situation. I think it's even more tragic when she comes back and says, "No, just kidding. I was alive all along. I forgive you." Yes, sir.
Where does this fall in the timeline of Shakespeare's works? The end, the beginning, the middle?
It is generally regarded as sort of like the end of the beginning. falling around there in the generally accepted timeline, but the timeline is all just a guess.
Since it was a medley of some of his hits, though, you would assume that it was after Romeo and Juliet.
You would assume that it does. Those are, however, themes that he returns to a lot in the course of writing. I think they're the ones that obsessed him for whatever reason. Okay, it's cool enough, and I think there's a breeze and there's enough shade. You should be able to enjoy the show. Thank you so much for being down here, and have a wonderful night.
Very nice, very nice.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Congratulations making it to the Final Four.
Oh, well, thank you. It was a great honor, and just like I said, a lifelong dream come true. So, or at least a 6-year dream come true.
Thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. Oh, you as well.
Thank you. We have an RSC DVD set that had this one.